This has always been a good Bachmann model from when it was first released, and the tooling is showing no signs of wear. Hi there to you, it's great to see you, hope I find you well. I'm Jennifer Kirk, welcoming you back up into the loft here on Weir Yard, and today we're going to be looking at a new model that has recently come out from Bachmann, and this is the Rail Stores liveried van. Now, the prototype of this van actually had quite an interesting history. Late on in the life of these wagons, BR needed some very short wheelbase wagons to be able to negotiate some of the tighter curves at some of the depots. And what they turned to was to actually upgrade the brakes and the suspension on some of the older vacuum brake vans so that they could run with the faster air brake trains. And this wagon was the result. It meant that there were some very interesting liveries that these received, and it's really great to be able to see this turn up ready to run in 00. So without further ado, come with me and let's take a close look at this all new van from Bachmann. This all new van from Bachmann, I've been waiting for this since it was announced because it is a very eye-catching livery that is suitable for the period that I really like to model, which is the sort of later tops period where we had that BR Rail Blue starting to give way to some of the more interesting liveries of the early sectorisation period. Now, the history behind these vans was quite simple. BR found itself with increasingly air brake trains. The vacuum brake fleet was being slowly phased out, but there were still occasions where they needed some short wheelbase wagons to be able to negotiate some of the tighter curves which were characteristic of some of the old steam era depots that were still in use, and also some of the other customers of BR. And this gave rise to a few different wagons. The VEA was kind of derived from the VEV. That is a wagon that is forthcoming from Bachmann, hasn't arrived yet. But also some of these VVA wagons, I guess they would be coded, or VVB, although in departmental use we've got a ZRB. Now, if you remember from the video I did on understanding what these three-letter tops codes mean, that means Z for departmental, R would be something like a stores vehicle, and B is an air-braked wagon with through vacuum piping. So I'm going to get this out of the box, but I will show you the catalogue number first. 38-233 BR 12-ton ZRB ventilated van, plywood doors, BR departmental rail stores. And up until now, we've had a lot of these short wheelbase vans released from Bachmann, but by and large they've tended to be in more the steam era liveries. So I've got one here, and here we have the bog standard tops lettered VVV wagon. And it's usually, not always, but usually special commissions that have been in different liveries. Now, we have had the ventilated vans in the white and the blue as a bit of an oddball, not really suitable for the later period. I'm not aware of either of those really lasting long enough to get tops codes. But we have had the olive green wagon, originally released a version as a special commission for Model Rail, and then this in the main range. And I guess this counts as an interesting special commission livery. Kernow Model Centre did one of the quite distinctive stores wagons for, I think it's St Blaise, and it's got the white stripe, does make it stand out. And again, Model Rail. This is a Mogo van, but certainly a very interesting and distinctive livery with the Satlink red and yellow. But this is really the first time that I've seen the Rail Stores wagons appear ready to run. Now, I'm going to take all but one of these out of the way, and the reason I'm going to leave one is because the real wagons had changed suspension and air brakes. Now they had to have the suspension changed to be able to accommodate the new brakes, and also to allow them to run at a faster speed in the freight trains. British Rail was going away from unbraked wagons, from vacuum brake wagons, and trying to standardise on that air braked fleet. Now, what is interesting for me is that, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect Bachmann to be changing the design of the chassis, but as far as I can tell here, we've got no real change to the braking equipment on this. Let's just see if we got it the right way round there. It would seem to be, yes. And both of these are using exactly the same tooling. And in all honesty with you, I would have been very surprised for Bachmann to have tooled up an all-new chassis for what is actually very, very few wagons. So I'm going to let that one slide. So we can see there exactly the same chassis and braking arrangements. We've got the vacuum brake cylinder on there. But that's just a minor detraction for me. Really, the main selling point for this, and what most people are really going to be looking at, is that livery. And this livery application has been done remarkably well. We've got that kind of slightly greeny slate grey, battleship grey maybe, of the lower 3/4 of the wagon. It's a really nice rendition of this colour. And actually, even though this wagon here is obviously pristine, it doesn't look garish and out of place, which on the Satlink wagon here, I always find they look very peculiar in model form when they're completely clean, because it's not really how we really saw them after they'd been running for a little bit. But this livery does look quite well at home in its clean form. I do like that very, very light, almost a baby powder blue on the top, or I guess would that be a Nassau blue? But certainly that has got a very, very sharp demarcation. It follows that planking line perfectly. And the Rail Stores stencil, if we get close enough to that, you can see that the actual stencil that would have been used to mark that on the wagon, we can see the lines of the stencil, and that's where it looks almost crazed. It's not crazed, it's the little gaps which would allow the stencil to not fall apart, and they just sort of whap it over, spray paint or brush paint over the stencil, and then remove that to leave that behind. Then we've got the BR double arrow and the lettering on the end there, and of course at this time BR was going towards the metric for the tear weight on there. Mechanical Engineers Department, ZRB, 12 tonne, 10 kilos be its tear weight, and there's the running number, ADB 781595. This wagon has the plywood doors. Bachmann have tooled up for a number of variants on these vans actually. Really nice to see that we've got plank doors, plywood doors, planked wagon, and plywood wagon, and I believe there's also some degree of variance in planking that I've seen across various different models. This has also got the corrugated metal ends, and these always do look good. This has always been a good Bachmann model from when it was first released, and the tooling is showing no signs of wear. There's no fuzziness to any of that moulding that I can see. Roof is just plain grey, nicely realised. Got rain strips on there. They do look a bit fat actually. The closer you look at them, I suppose we've been spoilt with some of the new wagons of late. Both sides of this wagon are identical as far as I can tell. Just looking at the stencil design, and yeah, it appears to be exactly the same. On the other end of the wagon, we've got some very, very fine printing as well. And then we've got the brake levers picked out in white. The underframe on this wagon is really nicely done. There's no issues with overspray, and the underside is all black, and it really does come together in a nice package. Buffers aren't sprung, but weren't expecting that because this is old tooling being repurposed with a new livery. And couplings, we've got the standard slimline tension locks there, with the mounting, the triangular shaped mounting, very, very thoughtfully hidden between the wheels, so if you want to go for a different method of coupling, it's not too in your face. We've got 3 whole disc wheels in there, really nice free running, and it's the standard Bachmann fare. So overall, really pleased with this release, and I'm sure you agree it's a great one to add to the variety of any layout set in probably around the 1980s, and it's going to look great on Weir Yard mixed in with all of my other departmental wagons. I really do have a soft spot for these. Looking to scores, well, build quality, it's pretty good. There's a couple of areas where, like the rain strips, getting a bit fat with age. Well, they've always been that fat, but as I said before, we've been a little bit spoiled. Everything else is where it should be. These are very robust wagons. They handle the handling really, really well. No loose buffers. So build quality, I'm going to give this a 9.5 out of 10. Next up, we've got running quality, and it runs just as you would expect it. No real derailing. The couplings don't have any kind of a droop that causes them to ride up over or under other couplings in the train. And quite frankly, there's not really a lot to fault. It's a good, solid wagon release from Bachmann. So I'm going to give this a 9.9. DCC fitting doesn't count for this. On innovation, this isn't bringing anything new to the party. It certainly was an innovative wagon when it first was released, but that's quite some time ago, and it has been outpaced by a lot of the new releases. We can't really hold too much of that against it, so I'm going to give this 8 out of 10. When it comes to accuracy and quality of finish, that's where the model does start to fall down a little bit. I understand why Bachmann have not retooled the chassis. It really would have made this an incredibly expensive model for really not that many prototypes. They might have been able to get away with using that chassis on the OHB wagons, which were the air-braked conversions of the open wagons to go with these, but really, in all honesty, I think it would have been a lot of expense for something subtle that most modelers really wouldn't have appreciated. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. On value for money, I've seen these around for the around the £20 to £21 mark. It's, well, I suppose par for the course for wagons, but the tooling on these has been around for quite some time, and it's not bringing anything new to the party, so it could be argued that tooling costs have long since been amortized from this. So I'm going to give this 7.5 out of 10. Certainly it is a model that I can well recommend, and I did make a beeline to this when it was released. There are some more great looking Bachmann wagons on the way, and I will be sure to add some of those to the Weir Yard fleet. So look out for the reviews of some of what I think are going to be the sleeper hits of the range later this year, when we take a look at some of their factory weathering exampled 16-ton mineral wagons. Those really are the ones that I am looking forward to. And that gives us a grand total of 41.9 out of 50 for this wagon release from Bachmann. For me, the standout of this model is its livery. It really is eye-catching and will look totally at home here on Weir Yard. I can wholeheartedly recommend this model, and I really do look forward to more releases from Bachmann. Well, I hope you found this video interesting, and we've got an affiliate link down below that takes you to Rails of Sheffield, where you can pick up this van from their range. Also, don't forget that you can check us out over on Patreon and help to support the channel and help us to make the videos that you want to see. And tickle that like button, and sharing is caring. And if you haven't already done so, do consider subscribing to us and ringing the bell, and choose all notifications to be the first to know about new videos as and when they go up. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirksheim. Take great care of yourself. Bye for now. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, oorail.co.uk, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Peter Bolton, Brian and Dorothy Mudd, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky 107107, George Botterini, Andy Finch, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, MD of San Juan Model Company and Grantline Products, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N from NC, NYMR-ish, Jonathan Foster, Peter, Graham Foster, Clifford Ison, Larry W. Grant, and Mo Henry. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.